So going a little further, take your blankets into more of a traditional fold as we typically do when we start class. And we're going to take every single prop you have and use it. Well, not the chair, but we could. In the not too distant past, it was always a collection of how many props have we pulled out of the back room and put into the studio, right? So what I'm going to do here is have the two blankets. My blocks are going to be to either side. And we're going to find a variety of positions that work for each and every level. So a simple cross, if you're tight, you might end up feeling more comfortable having the cross at your ankles. And then you're going to angle the blocks into the back of the thighs. So that might be position one for tight hips, tight knees, that sort of thing. All right. Now, if you have your little bolsters left over, all right, what that can be is taking them underneath your shin, which is a nice position. So sometimes we used to take a blanket and wrap it in. So you'd have one here and one here, right? So that's another option rather than the block. It's a little softer. You get a bit more. Exactly, Suzanne. Perfect. Right. So that's another way to go. The full pose, the classic pose, is having a reach of the heels out. So your ankles draw into the center of the alignment of your leg rather than not. And that will create a little bit of tension between the two legs. So your shins are pressing out. It draws the back of the pelvis in and up. However, sometimes we just don't get that, right? So take your belt and create a loop, a reasonably big loop, all right? So we're going to play with belts. It's not fun with flags, but it's fun with belts, right? For those of you that watch The Big Bang. Now, take the belt over your trunk, and you want the belt to be down here low on the back of the pelvis. So the nuance of this is, all right, here's the bend of my leg, right? I want the belt to be so low as to come from the back around to the front in that general region, okay? So it gives me a lot of support back in here. Okay? Now, lift your knees up for a moment and put the belt as close to the kneecap as possible. So I really have, and do have the mindfulness to keep your belt buckle off of your person, right? So my knees are up higher than before, but I can feel the sense of the back body being lifted and drawn forward as the belt comes to this part of my knee so it doesn't slide up or doesn't slide down. And just let your legs get heavy. And then cross your forearms. And for those of you tight shoulder people, you hold the wrists rather than the opposite elbow. And as you let the buttock bones descend down, lean into that belt behind you and lift the arms up. And you might feel as though you're not really having to work in your lower back. So the shins are still crossed, all right? Because some of you have done this, all right? You don't want to do that. You still want to have crossed because the knees are falling out into the belt. And then for those of you whose arms are up, lower the arms and then reverse your cross. So it's not quite Supta Baddha Konasana belt, which is another belt position. But this is coming up over the outer kneecap, right? And if you feel as though it's just not giving you enough support, this way your back and your hips can release. Right? And then exhale, take the arms down and extend the fingertips out to the side. So if you're not using the blocks, you can take the blocks out to get an uplift in this armpit region. as if you have two supports, maybe crutches. I don't know, that's not the most pleasant image you want to bring. All right. Good. So you do want the belt big enough that you're not fighting with your knees. Yeah, and Lisa, you might want to lift the knees up a little higher and tighten the belt a little bit more. Because see, here's how high my knees are and the feet are down on the floor. So there's a big height here. Now, if you're still working with adjusting your belt, continue to get a place where you have some sense of this pose. But if you've been here for a while now, take the soles of the feet together. And now the belt still stays in the same place, like I showed you before, where it's down low on the back of the pelvis. It comes over the top of the thighs. But now you want the outer edge of the belt on your feet below. So I just take the belt forward from my hips. I lift the toes and I take it underneath, and then I push out into the belt. So now I get a sense of the belt pulling me forward, right? And then the legs just drop. So this is pretty open for me. It might be pretty contained for those of you with tight knees or tight hips. So you may want to stay here. But if you are pretty open and being up high on a bolster or like this, or a set of blankets, really bring the heels of the feet in close. Again, I'm adjusting so the belt buckle is not on my person. And I'm getting a very nice containment here, where if I lean back in the chest slightly, I'm not going to go over because the belt is giving me a little pushback to draw up. Now this time, interlace your fingers and extend your arms out. If you're tight in the shoulders, bend the elbows and take your knuckles to your sternum and just reach out through the elbow. I don't want you to take it up. If you're open enough, sweep the arms forward, out, and up. Lengthen the back body. And then release the arms out and down. Bring your hands to your kneecaps. And then reach the kneecaps out into the hands. Reverse cross the fingers, extend your arms out. Again, if you're a tight shoulder person or a neck person, just keep the knuckles close to the sternum, reach out through the elbows. Yeah. So that the interlace of the fingers is giving you a pushback to broaden the collarbones and broaden the shoulder blades. If you're going further, straighten the arms out and raise the arms up. Now, inhale, lift up as high as you can. If you want to take a forward extension with this, release the palms forward and then bring the hands down to the floor in front of you. If that's not your pose, you would then release the arms down, find your kneecaps, and again, reach out through the kneecaps. Let this settling of the shoulder blades occur as you reach out through the underside of your arms. And an inhale, come back up. Now, some of you may not know, if you do not have a quick release belt, right now my belt is lying evenly, one on top of the other. But if I slide the belt at an angle off, so there's a V, if you will, here, it's much easier to release the belt when it's at that angle, so you don't have to fight to get it to undo. Take the belt out from underneath, lift the knees up, and then extend your legs out in Dandasana. You can take the belt up and over and off. Now flex the feet, ground the heels, take the ball mounds of the feet out. Flex the feet and hold the back of the knees, bend the knees, taking the knees up. We're going to go into Upavistha Konasana. So here, I have to come right to the edge of my support. And it should tilt the pelvic bowl in such a way that you're already feeling like you're rotating forward. Firm the thighs down by pressing the heels of the hands into the top thigh and reach the thigh flesh out towards the knee. A lot of times we get hooked up in this general region. So again, if you flex the feet, ground your heels, and take the ball mounds out without shortening the back of the heel, it might feel like the thighs are being drawn out. Cross your forearms, inhale, lengthen up. Reach even further, stretch your arms up, palms face forward. As you exhale, rotate pubic bone down, hands to the legs, wherever they go. So you might have moved forward 2 feet, you might have moved forward 2 centimeters. All's good. As long as you're feeling a very nice sensation in the inner groin, an opening in the hip, lengthening in the back of the leg, lift from the outer hips up, lift the armpits up while reaching out and down through the hands. Now, for those of you a little bit more fluid, all right, what you can do is right now, turn the inner groin out, so the outer hip grounds down. Keep your elbows moving back and come forward a little bit more. Keep stretching through those legs, lifting the sternum up and out, stretching through the legs, and then slide your hands out further. And if you are towards the lower section of your calf, extend the calf flesh out towards the heel, and you might feel a little bit more movement of your thigh bone out of the hip socket, so that eventually you can come all the way down. So it's about creating space in between the insertion of the thigh bone into the hip socket. And that gets complicated because everybody has a different shape of thigh bone, you know, and hip socket. So if there's a little bump on top and it rubs up against something, you have to create more space. And the standing poses will do that for us. Right? The reaching of the thighs out will do that for us. Press into your bolster or seat of blankets and come back up into a simple cross-legged position, and notice if that changed a lot for you. If we release in this way, it's much easier to sit up. It's much less work for your back. Now reverse the cross of the legs, which gives your other sitting bone, the other side of your spine, an opportunity to even out. So if you're hypersensitive in your lower back, this might be what you need to do, is to reverse the cross of your legs when you sit a lot of times. It may shift the weight ever so slightly to the right or to the left, so you're landing better.